I didn't say it on this show yet, but I'm running for school board out in my area. So that means I'm knocking on a lot of doors.
And I sure hope you get in.
We're going to fight for it. But so, I've got some community members that have a strong opinion about the school that they're paying for, that I'm running for that board. And, of course, I'll give you my vote. We share similar beliefs. They get their election, their ballots in the mail, okay, because this is a mail-in deal. And I'm getting text messages from them because I've given them all my phone number.
Right.
I've got 200 new friends at least.
Nice.
But so they're saying, Jim, I filled out the ballot. I already told you how I feel about the school, and I'm looking at the address. This ballot goes straight to the school that I don't believe is doing a good job, and you're telling me they're in charge of the election?
Right.
And I'm just reinforcing what you're saying there. It is amazing to me the level of control that a school board has over their own governance.
Right.
Right? So my understanding is that ballot goes into the mail, and it goes to the school that is basically, like you just said, having people put that ballot from the mailbox into a ballot box, which is locked, and there should only be one election official that has the key to that. But what happens if that mail doesn't make it into the box? Right?
Kind of makes you wonder how some of these incumbents have been on the board for 20, 30, 40 years.
I got one that's been on there over 40 years. I wasn't around to vote for him in the past, but that is fascinating to me. That's a lot of years. Then it's my understanding that on Election Day, they pull those ballots out and they count them right there at the school. Now, I was refreshed to know that there's an election judge that oversees that process. And boy, do I hope they do a good job for just for the community. So, again, I'm just kind of reinforcing what you're talking about with these ballots and these $12 an hour substitute teachers. I think anytime you can take the bias out of the process is a good thing. And I don't see where paying a teacher to be involved in the election process is a good idea. But
well, here's some of the bias that's happening. This is with most of the information I have is all with Kalispell School District 5 because that's what I'm familiar with. That's where I live, and that's where my children go to school. And I know things are different out in your neck of the woods because you have to have 15,000 registered voters or 2,000 over 2,000 students. And I know you guys have a relatively small school,
right?
And you don't have the same ability to make sure things are going right that I do.
Yeah.
Because I fall under the Commissioner of Political Practice for Montana, whereas you do not, and that's what those numbers cover. But to give you an idea, in Kalispell School District 5, on February 24th, they held a vote to keep masking kids or to not mask kids. There are 11 board members. Mm-hmm. They put out a request for emails voting for or against because COVID was at its height, and they weren't allowing people to come in because some people showed up without masks, so they made it online only. Out of per Micah Hill, 637 voting emails were received. The minutes only showed 570 emails, which says there's 67 missing emails. Mm-hmm. 536 were pro-mask and 111 against mask. Now, here's where the corruption and the bias comes in, is that somebody I know did a Freedom of Information Act request and found that of these 536 pro-mask, the ones they called for masking, were emails where the entire email said, "You're doing a good job. That's it." Yeah. Or "Thanks for what you do."
Right.
And they counted those as pro-mask, emails.
Instead of throwing them out because they weren't for or against. They were just saying, "You're doing a good job."
Right. But aside from the fact that there were 67 missing, that's a disturbing. That's disturbing as the election is. What are they going to do with that information? Are they going to count some of those wrongly?
It just feels like it was manipulated. Right. And by the way, the response was manipulated. By the way, I was at the board meeting, that you're referring to. And, I'm kind of a statistics guy and knowing your own truth, right? What is your own truth that you see and know around you? Well, being at that meeting, the audience was full probably for the first time, and they allowed people to speak for 2 minutes each. It was at least 50, I'll give it 50-50 for and against there. And I would presume that the emails would have been very similar if it was at least honest, right?
Right.
Because people that represent, it's a lot more work to go down there than send an email, and you would think that that's a good representation of what the general public wants. But, it's just insane. I don't believe those numbers for a second.
I don't either. And, being here in Montana, which is, traditionally been a pretty conservative place, especially in this valley, versus, being in Bozeman or over in Missoula, these numbers don't make sense at all. And I'd say out of all the people that I talk to, probably 85, 90% want the mask to be optional in schools.
Yeah.
Now, this is, that's here nor there, but I filed 9 complaints with the Commissioner of Political Practice, 4 against the current incumbents that are running, and the other 5 against sitting members of the board. Those complaints were because they had never registered with the Commissioner of Political Practice to run their campaigns. This stems all the way back from 2017 for some of them until the last election and then this election.
So what you're referring to is if somebody says, hey, I'm going to run for school board, right? Joe Schmo, he or she needs to register.
Right.
What is that, a C1?
A C1A.
A C1A that they're going to run for an elected position.
Correct.
Right, okay.
And they have, from the time they're filed as a candidate, they have 5 days to do so.
Right, okay.
Okay, now, all of those complaints came back founded and have been pushed on to the Lewis and Clark County attorney, Leo Gallagher, for consideration of prosecution. It says right in the findings of the complaints that what generally happens is that gets sent back to the commissioner, who then decides to prosecute or fine, and it usually results in a fine. I'll get back to that in a minute. This is the part that is interesting to me. In Montana Code Annotated 2019, Code 13-37-126, names not to appear on a ballot. The name of a candidate may not appear on an official ballot for an election if the candidate or a treasurer for a candidate fails to file any statement or report as required by 2-2-106 of this chapter. That, to me, says that anybody who has not filed with the COPP and they haven't registered can't be even on the ballot, let alone run.
Yeah.
Yet 9 of these individuals have never, ever registered with the COPP. It shows whether you're active or inactive. Their names didn't even come up.
Wow.
Would you like to hear who they are?
Yeah. Wow.
The current incumbents are Kim Wilson, Sue Corrigan, Amy Waller, and Lance Isaac.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Lance Isaac's friend has just filed more complaints with the COPP on some of the candidates, the conservative candidates that are running. And one of them was dismissed, and the other one has not. It's still, going through its process. The sitting members of the board, Mark Cornick, Will Hyatt, Jack Fallon, Ursula Wild, and Scott Warnell, are all sitting in those seats, but their elections don't seem to be legitimate. They have never filed with the COPP, and right in the findings that came from the COPP, it says that oversight and ignorance are not excuses for not running. And that's a quote. That's the words they used.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no getting out of this for them. Now, what concerns me is that they send that information on to the county attorney sends that back over to the commissioner, and then it usually results in a fine. Well, to me, that says, hey, you can break all the rules, all the laws you want. Doesn't matter. You pay a fine and you win your seat. To me, that says for sale. Now, I'm saying that now, and I want to reiterate at the end of this podcast. But and you'll get this information again. And Jim, you said you're going to put it somewhere on the.
Yeah, I'll put some contact info on here and the like. But what's interesting in my own personal run for this election is that there's rules to follow.
There is.
There's forms to fill out. There's rules to follow. If you're going to raise any money, if somebody makes a donation, there's a dozen rules to follow on that at least, and ignorance is not an excuse. And yes, it's a hassle as a candidate, but I can see the importance of it. And if you don't have the tenacity and the education enough to fill out some forms and follow some rules, why would I want you on my board anyhow, right?
Exactly.
So it seems like what they've done is either a major oversight or something else there. And what's interesting, and I can only assume that this happens, but that oftentimes, you got a little cronyism. It's like, hey, I need you on the school board. Why don't you run? We'll throw you on the ballot. You'll get voted in type stuff. Right. And next thing you know, you got somebody on the board that's got the cronyism, and you do the research like you've done. You're like, wait, they never should have been on the ballot in the first place. Right? How did they get on? So, I think you're raising some really interesting questions. I think probably one of the more important factors about some of this discussion today is that it gives people the tools to do some research in their own areas.
Right.
To ask the important questions, to look at the important facts, and the people that not only are using your tax dollars, right, because we all pay taxes for our schools,
right,
but more importantly, the people that are in charge of the oversight of your children, the curriculum, what they're able to do or not do,
right,
and the list goes on when it relates to that, right?
Right, and there's a whole lot of truth in this too. You don't know what you don't know, but if you're unsure, seek out somebody who has run in the past, or contact the Office of Political Practice and find out what exactly you need to know. They're there to help. Mm-hmm. And if you contact them, they say right in the complaints, the results that I got back, that if they had contacted them, they would have told them exactly what they needed. It says right in that the findings.
Yeah.
But regardless, there's an election going on. These people are not legitimate, and they should not be on that ballot, and they should not have those seats they're in. Now, being as far as that being kicked back to the Commissioner of Political Practice, I don't think there should be any question as to whether or not they're removed from those seats or removed and have to. I don't think they should be able to run again personally, but my opinion doesn't matter. But they should be removed from those seats and either not run again or have to run midterm. Those are 3-year terms. If they're in the middle of their term, but they're in the middle of their term illegitimately, they should have to run again.
Rerun.
So there should be an emergency election for those seats.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that. I mean, it would happen in any other government.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. You've discovered this. You're passionate about what's going on in the schools. Your daughters are going there. Now you're neck deep in this shit.
Oh, yeah. Really deep.
Where are you going from here?
I don't know. To tell you the truth, I started all this, to help my daughter. And that has moved considerably to helping all the kids in the Valley, whether they're liberal or conservative. It doesn't matter. The option is there. I want to help all the kids. The kids need somebody to speak up for them because they're not allowed through these schools to speak up for themselves. And that's very disturbing. I really appreciate the fact that you brought me onto your podcast because I try to run this information through the Daily Interlake, the Flathead Beacon, KPAX, on Facebook, on Flathead 411. Nobody will publish it. Nobody will touch it. They post very insignificant articles, yet they say this is not newsworthy. I feel this is very newsworthy.
And I believe that you just answered it, but I'm going to let you answer it a different way.
Sure.
You're a parent. What is your motivation for doing this? Why are you spending so much time doing this?
I'm a Christian above all, and I'm a conservative. I believe in the Constitution. I believe in liberty and justice. And I'm trying to set an example for my kids and for any other kids who will listen and watch. I want them to see that there are people out there who care about their rights and are willing to fight for them. I'm also, you asked what's coming next for me. I am currently in the planning stages of creating an organization for kids that there's Turning Point USA, which is here in the Valley. And this is actually a separate point, but
great kids, by the way.
Yes,
those
awesome.
Kids are bright. If you don't know Turning Point USA, founded by Charlie Kirk.
Yes.
Incredible podcast host.
Right.
I understand, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard that he has taken over Rush Limbaugh's show
I haven't
on
heard
the
that.
AM radio.
That's
Yeah, he
awesome.
kind of made a light announcement last week. But so Turning Point USA, they've got chapters across the United States, right?
Yeah. And so get this, at least